A very good evening to everyone, and again, welcome to this uh, series, now the ninth webinar that Birdwatcher Society has been organizing. Started since the lockdown, and we are continuing, and uh, we hope we can bring in more interesting talks from people all over our landscape, Nepal, even Bhutan, and even Myanmar. Today we are going to talk about the birds of the high altitudes of Annapurna and Rara landscape in Western Nepal. And today our speaker is Mr. Suchit Basnet. He is a tour leader and particularly a very ardent birder. So I'll come to that again later. Uh, the house rules remain as usual for the meeting. For those of you who have been tuning in regularly, you know, you have to keep your microphone muted. And whatever questions you have, please do type it in the chat box in Zoom that is there. And once Suchit finishes his presentation, we will read out your questions and he will respond to them. So before I hand this over to Suchit, I would also like to say that I've known him for quite some time, I think since the late 90s. He was born in Darjeeling, so he has a very close Darjeeling link, and went to school at St. Joseph's and Dr. Graham's homes in Kalimpong. St. Joseph's School in Darjeeling, and then Dr. Graham's homes in Kalimpong. And after that, in 1998, he left Darjeeling and then went back to his life in Nepal, started living in Nepal. He worked as a naturalist in Chitwan National Park from 1989 to 1994. And then he was a professional wildlife leader, again from 1994 to 1999 for 5 years. Since then, since 1999, I think that was the time around when I met him till today, he is a tour operator, a wildlife leader, particularly a very ardent and a passionate bird watching person. And also interested, like many of you in our Bird Watchers Society, on not only on again, listing the birds in our, just increasing the birds and putting it under our belt, but also very, very interested in conservation, very, very interested in advocating for habitat conservation also. So right now, Suchit is associated with many of his partners in Nature Safari Tours Private Limited, and also they own a very interesting place in Koshitappu Wildlife Sanctuary, which is very close actually from Siliguri, close to Biratnagar. So a place where I also have wanted to go for a very, very long time. So they also have a Koshi Camp Private Limited over there. And he likes to take photographs, and also, like many of us, he's into nature and wildlife. So this is about Suchit. I'm really happy to actually present him today and look forward to his talk. So I hope you all like his talk also. So over to you, Suchit. Please start your presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Sarala. It was lovely to see you after such a long time, even if it's just virtual. I did meet in the screen, so it was lovely to see you and meet Susan as well. Namaste and good evening to everybody from Kathmandu. Firstly, today I'm going to tell you a little bit of the slides that I'm going to present tonight. I'm just trying to take you to explore some of the high altitude birds and the habitats, especially in two areas, the Rara National Park in the far western region of Nepal, and the Annapurna, which is in the central western part, which is actually quite famous for the Annapurna. I think everybody knows the Annapurna area, and the mountain itself. So these are the two areas that I'm going to tell you about and take you on a little short journey. So first of all, taking you to the Rara trip, it started off, moment, something wrong with my
left man. Towards the left, there'll be an arrow kind of a thing.
Yeah, yeah, there's a one.
You want to stop sharing and share again?
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe you should try that.
Okay, so yeah, back to it. Sorry, guys. Now, this expedition started with, as you know, the famous bird watchers, Tim and Carol. I was very lucky to take them to this Rara area, uh, uh, along with my friend Hatan Chowdhury, who's also a good birder. So this journey started from Kathmandu airport. As we can see, we had the opportunity to take a photograph. It took us about 45 minutes flight to Nepalganj. And from Nepalganj, we had to take this little tiny little STOL aircraft made in Canada. This is actually a flight that goes to the mountains, and this is on one of the only flights, the aircraft that can actually land in these small strips in the high mountains. So this is the view as we flew from Nepalganj. And just before we reached the Rara National Park, or Rara, the Talcha airport, you can see in the inset the little tiny cabin. It's 14-seater plane, and shakes quite a bit. And you can see the airport that we are going to land in the middle of the screen. And just above that, you can see the blue line, which is the Rara Lake. And the hills and the forest around that is the beautiful Rara National Park. Sorry, again having problems. Right, this is Talcha Airport, which is about 2,735 meters in height. This was only started in the early 2000s, but before that, we had to walk a long, long distance to the Rara Lake, something at around 7 to 8 days of trekking. So this place was very much under birdwatchers' reach. So a lot of bird watchers could not come here. But after it was tarmacked and the function, the aircraft, the airline, the airport became functional in 2015 when it got tarmacked. There were more frequent flights, so we were very privileged to take this flight to this area. And after, so we were at Talcha Airport. So once we reached the airport, after lunch we walked. Oh God!
So
Sorry, something is wrong.
it doesn't matter. Just go back and just take it one by one. It's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So okay. So can you see the screen?
Yes, yes, we can.
Yes. Okay. So then after lunch, we had to make quite a strenuous uphill. It took us about half an hour to 45 minutes to get to this vantage point, looking down at the airport and the Talcha village, small village. And from as we walked up to this point, we saw the Himalayan griffon vultures soaring up in the sky. These are quite a common widespread resident vultures. These vultures are one of the biggest vultures that we find in Nepal, quite bulky. They are found between 75 meters to about 6,100 meters in elevation. During the winter time, juvenile or immatures, they go down to quite a low altitude, but they go pretty high to around 4,000 meters to breed in cliffs. And also another bird that we saw soaring above as we walked was this llama gyre. is called the bearded vulture also. This bird is not a huge bird like Himalayan griffon, but it has quite a long wingspan. Is one of the longest wingspan vultures in the subcontinent, and it is also known as a sort of bone cracker, okay, hardcore in Nepali, which means it cracks bones. And if you don't, some of you, if you don't know, they take the bone right up in the air, drop it in a rocky bed, which smashes, and then the marrow, they come down to eat the bone marrows inside. So these llama guys, they are found or recorded from 1200 to 4100 meters in elevation. Now, as we walked, we entered the Rara National Park, which was established in 1976. It is 106 square kilometers. It is one of the smallest national parks in Nepal, but altitudinal wise, it varies from 2,990 meters to 4,039 meters. So it is quite a small national park with quite a lot good height elevation. So walking through the national park, we walked through this coniferous forest, this tall, the pine trees, very quiet. There are very few visitors, very tranquil. And especially in this conifer forest, there's not a high density of birds. And the most common bird that we saw as we walked was this spotted nutcracker. If you guys have gone to a little high altitude, you see this bird. They're quite noisy. They are fairly common resident birds in this area, and they like this conifer forest. These birds are recorded from about 2135 meters, that is 2,135 meters to 3,050 meters in elevation. So the walk from Talcha Airport to the Rara Lake takes about 2 to 3 hours, walking through this beautiful conifer blue pine forest. And we come to a nice place where we see the first view of the Rara Lake. The Rara Lake is one of the biggest freshwater lakes in Nepal. Uh, it is about 16.5 square kilometers. The deepest part of this lake is 167 meters deep, which is about 548 feet. This was proclaimed as a Ramsar site in 2007. So unfortunately, in the lake, if you come in the winter time, which actually has got snow at that in this lake, but we get quite a lot of waders, ducks and all these things. But when we reached there, this is the April time, most of the birds had left. But as we walked on the bank, the water of this lake is so clear, we can see the fish. I took this photograph from near the bank. Rara has 3 endemic snow trouts. And there's also one endemic frog. It's called the Rara lake frog, which has been reported in the early 1990s. So after we reach the lake has a beautiful trail that goes all along. Unfortunately, we could not do this trail all the way around, but in fact, the locals say that the trails go around something like 15 to 20 kilometers, pretty long trail. And as we walked in this trail, getting to our place where we were to stay, we saw this common black-headed gull. It is a winter visitor and a passage migrant in Nepal. These birds were actually just here on passage, so they go to the Tibetan plateau to breed. Another bird, as we walked on the path, was this yellow-billed blue magpie. We actually encountered quite a lot of them around. This was one of the photographs that I took. These are quite common widespread resident. they like broad-leafed and conifer forest, and they are found between 1800 to 3660 meters in elevation. These birds are actually, as you know, you find them also in the Shingalila areas. They're quite notorious. They behave like magpies. They go and hunt. They go for other birds' nest. They're quite noisy. They raid others' nest and young ones. But they're quite pretty and very elegant with their long, beautiful tail. Another bird, which is actually a rarity in the Rara area, is this, the chestnut-headed tesia. I like to call these birds a jewel of the forest. They are so beautiful. Once you see them, you don't want to take your bins out of it, from it. But they don't stay in one area for long. They are quite skulking birds. These birds are found from 800 to about 4,000 meters in altitude. For the small bird, during winter time, they have very soft contact notes, but during the summertime, breeding time, they're very loud for such a small bird. Finally, we reach our destination, or where we were to stay. This is one of the only places. It's called Dafe Guest House. Quite a shabby looking place, very basic facilities. As you know, no in-suite facilities in this lodge. And the best food you can get here is dal bhat, the rice and lentil, and freshly prepared. But even for this shabby place, when you look out of your room, the view is just astonishing. The breathtaking view of the Rara Lake and the adjoining forest and the hills around. So this used to be our view most of the mornings and evenings on a clear day. So Rara National Park is also quite famous for its flora. There are about 1,070 species of flora been recorded here. The dominant species is blue pine. There's rhododendrons, fir, oak, birch, spruce trees, quite big trees, and also small shrubs that you see, the berberis and the small shrubs and shrubberries, becomes quite a good habitat for lots of birds. And Tim and Carol and Tim, they were very fascinated, and we just spent quite a long time in these berberis bushes trying to find some goodies. And one of the bird that we were all after was this one called the Venetius rosefinch. The male looks spectacularly crimson red, very beautiful. The female looks dark and brown, as you can see on the wing of the male. That is the color that the female has. This is a scarce bird even in the Rara National Park. It's Tim and Carol, they question it to be whether resident or migrant, we don't know. But the movement is from 1,065 to 3,200 meters in elevation. Another bird, while we are birding in the scrubs, we saw was this one called the aberrant bush warbler. This is also a rarity in Rara, but these few birds that come here, they breed here. So these birds, they winter down to about 100 meters or even 75 meters at Koshi sometimes, but mostly 100 meters to 3,950 meters in altitude. So again, back to the trail, this used to be our daily thing going around. We stayed about 5 days at Rara National Park. And this trail we used to walk. And in this trail, there was this conifer forest, patches of broadleaf forest, open patches. And what we noticed was it was very good for the species, the tit species that we find in this altitude. This tit is the gray crested tit. It is a widespread resident found between 2,450 meters to 4,200 meters. So this was the bird that we saw nearly most all of the days, as you can say. They go in small flocks. You can hear the peculiar shrinking noise in the conifers, and along with them, the rufous-vented tit. This was also quite a common tit that we used to see around. It's quite a widespread resident also, like the gray-crested tit. This bird, as you know, is found all along Nagaland, from Nagaland to Nepal and Himachal Pradesh, ranging from 2,135 meters to 4,270 meters in elevation. But the tit that we were after was this one. And I was very excited because I really wanted to see this bird. It's a very, very beautiful, pretty bird. It's called the white-throated tit. It is a local resident. It is very, very rare in central or central west Nepal. Doesn't really occur in the eastern side. It goes from 2,800 to 3,965 meters in elevation. So this was a lifer for me, but while we were walking in these trails, every time we saw them, every day in fact, we saw them. So they were pretty locally common at Rara National Park. And as I said, along the trail, we used to come to patches where there was sandbanks near the water, but unfortunately, we did not see any waders at that time. Uh, the forest and the open meadows was very special. And when we entered, we found a very exciting record. It's very well camouflaged bird, as you can see, ladies and gentlemen. It's right in the center. It is called the Eurasian lark. This one actually it winters in Pakistan and North India. And there were records in the past of these birds, but Tim and Carol did not want to put it as confirmed birds until we saw this bird in Rara. We photographed it, and this is the first confirmed record of this bird for Nepal. And as we walked in the national park, we come to this area. This is actually called Kharka. I don't know whether this term is also used in India in the northern parts. Kharka means a place where the locals bring their cattle during the summertime to graze. Okay, when there's the heavy monsoon down in the north, they bring their cattle up here. They make temporary shelters and they let the cattle graze in these patches, which looks nice green. And because of the cattle, these areas become quite open, but the pine trees are quite uh, good habitats for this bird. Actually, I could not take a better photograph than this because they always stayed on the top of the trees. White-cheeked nuthatch. This is actually a resident bird in the western part of Nepal. It does not occur in the eastern side. They are conifer forest specialists. The males are very loud. Actually, the bird that you see in the center is a male calling very loud, and it is like a bleating of a young goat. Very, very unique sound. This is a fairly common resident in northwest Nepal, but does not occur eastwards. They are found from 2,745 meters to 3,900 meters in elevation. Another specialty of the conifer forest is this bird. It's called the Kashmir nuthatch. So those of us who have not been to Kashmir or cannot go to Kashmir, you should come to Rara to see the Kashmir nuthatch. They are locally found common resident in northwest Nepal, like the white-cheeked nuthatch. There occurs in West Nepal only and goes right up till Kashmir. Does not occur in central or eastern Himalaya. These birds, they range from 2,400 meters to 3,500 meters in elevation. Another bird which we were really interested to see, and it's a very pretty bird, is the black and yellow grosbeak. This is a very rare and local resident bird. They are conifer forest specialities. They occur only in West Nepal and also West India in some areas, I don't know, along Nainital and even west from that, and also not recorded in the eastern Himalayas. So these birds really are special for the western side of Nepal. And Rara Lake, as you see, is always beautiful. Uh, our late King Mahendra used to write very romantic poems. He wrote lots of romantic poems. He used to visit this lake many, many times. Even then, yeah, he had this, there, possibly he used to come in helicopters from Nepalganj. And he used to come here and used to vanish. He had a small place to stay here. And it's truly a heavenly place, beautiful place, tranquil. And if you gentlemen someday plan to come to Nepal and visit Rara, it is very much worthwhile. So with this view of the Rara Lake, I end the tour for the Rara section. Now, I would like to take you guys to central West Nepal, the famous Annapurna area. Very, very different to the Rara area, much more accessible, very touristic. Uh, Most of this is actually covered by the Annapurna Conservation Area Project. This is the largest protected area in Nepal, and it covers about 7,629 square kilometers, which is a huge area. In this area, there are about 26 species of flowering plants, 105 species of mammals, 518 species of birds, 40 species of reptiles, and 23 amphibian species been recorded. So when I last went to this place, we actually did a very old-fashioned way of going to the Annapurna areas, trekking with tents. This is now, it's like a myth. Nobody really does it at this time. Very few people in very few areas in Nepal, you go trekking with tents. Since the political problem that we had in Nepal, we had stopped doing this. But this place is called Chandrakot. This Chandrakot is the first point, one of the points that you can enter the ACAP area. And behind that, you can see the Annapurna South, starting from your left, Annapurna South, Himchuli, then the Annapurna tree in between, and the fishtail or the Macha Puchre on the right-hand side. So the most common bird that we encounter in this altitude as we start in this Annapurnas is this great barbet. They're very loud. It's called Nyauli in Nepali. And we say that when it calls during March and April, we call the melancholy sound of the barbet or the Nyauli. It is a widespread resident found between 900 to 2200 meters. They prefer subtropical and temperate forest type. Another bird in this elevation as we come to Chandrakot was the white-throated laughing thrush. They are also very loud birds. They do occur at sort of quite a middle range from 1800 to 2440 meters. They are found from east to west of Nepal, and they go in small groups of 4 to about 15. But even in small groups, they're pretty loud and noticeable. So walking in this trail, as you can see, Annapurna is actually quite famous for this beautiful stone steps, which is laid out in most of the Annapurna trekking areas and trails. And as you walk in these trails, the variety of habitats that you pass is also quite incredible. When we start the trek in the Annapurna areas, we start from the Modi Khola. There are some the low down rivers which are at an altitude of around 600 meters, and going right up on the to the top, as you can see, the fishtail looking down upon you. The vegetation is mostly alder. This grows very well in sort of the lowlands and degraded soil, alder forest. And in this habitat, you mostly get the brown dipper. This is actually quite a resident. This is a resident bird right from Bangladesh, Nepal, Pakistan, all the way, found in mountain streams in the foothills of the Mahabharat range. This is actually a young one, which still, as you can see, it's got spots on his body, but the brown dipper is actually all over brown. Another bird that you can see in these rivers is the black-backed forktail. Like the brown dipper, this is also a resident bird found across from Bangladesh to Nepal to Pakistan, all the way through in mountain streams, coming down quite low at times. They go also found at Chitwan at 350 meters above sea level. And another bird that we found quite special going to this on the rivers is the crested kingfisher. It's the largest kingfisher in the subcontinent, found in the rivers of the foothills. And they travel, they are recorded from 250 to 1800 meters. So this is actually, I'm just trying to show you how the trekking hotel used to move. So we had a lot of porters to carry our tents, and they always bring you close to nature. You can hear the sound of the insects, birds, owls at night, including the barking dogs also at night. They disturb your sleep sometimes. But apart from that, the sound of the nature is very nice. You are very attached to nature. And it is also a very comfortable way of traveling if you pay money. Comfortable seats, tea and coffee, hot chocolates, three-course meals. So this is like a moving resort. And sometimes the view from the tent in some areas is fantastic. As soon as you get up, before you put on your boots, you can see the Annapurna in front of you. What a breaking sort of thing, view for the morning. And as I said, there were the other options that we find along this mountain trails is the lodges and guest houses, which are also quite basic, some of them quite lavish, uh, uh, with en-suite facilities, so some of them quite posh. So this is always a good place to stop and have tea after you do a birding. And one thing is around the vicinity of the lodges, there are also some very good habitats, as you can see, bamboos there, all along bamboo habitats. And this areas, as you walk up, the habitat, as I said, changes. This one, we were walking towards Gorepani, our destination, at around 3,200 meters. A beautiful ravine with this beautiful flowing river. And the habitat is dense, moist, evergreen, temperate forest. And we get specialities like the streak-breasted scimitar babblers. We have 10 species of the scimitar babblers found in Nepal, and they are found, this particular one is found between 1500 to 2590 meters in height. But the one of my favorite is the slender-billed scimitar babbler. The slender-billed scimitar babblers, they like very moist bamboo areas near streams, very, very secretive. But if you know the call, they are very loud. They are quite scarce resident in central and west Nepal, also ranging from 1500 to 3300 meters in elevation. Another striking bird in this habitat along as we go is the green-tailed sunbird, which used to be called Nepal sunbird in the past, as it may have been first described from Nepal. 900 meters to 3000 meters, that is the range that they are found. They prefer oak, rhododendron, and mixed evergreen forest. This is our final destination, Gorepani, 3,200 meters. And then again, going up another couple of hundred meters to the Poon Hill, which is a little higher up. But this breakfast time, as you can see in the morning, it was this was in November, and it was minus 3 degrees in the morning time. And as you can see at the back, we have the Dhaulagiri mountain, which is at the seventh highest mountain in the world. And in this altitude, the most common high altitude bird that we saw was the blue-fronted redstart. This blue-fronted redstart goes from an altitude of 1,000 meters to about 4,900 meters in elevation. They breed in the subalpine shrubberries. They are sometimes also seen around the gardens in Kathmandu Valley during the winter time. Another bird that we see in the conifer and broadleaf forests is the white-collared blackbird. This is a common resident bird found between 1,500 to 3,445 meters in altitude. This is obviously the female. Uh, the male is all dark with a white collar. And as we walk in this Annapurna area, the Gurung village, the famous Gurkhas come from this tribe. A very typical house and the village life I'm trying to show you, with always the view of the Annapurna at the background. So the ACAP area is actually very successful in using the locals in conservation by involving them, and also that is the best way to do. And ACAP is one of the examples where local participation in conservation is at its maximum. Now, as we come down, we come to the lower strip of the Annapurna areas. This is called the Thulo Kharka. And as you know now, by now, the Kharka means before these lodges were here, this place could have been a beautiful pasture for the locals to bring their cattle. But now it is a very nice place to spend some time birding around. Beautiful habitats around with the beautiful views of the Annapurna range at the background. And this is the place which is actually quite special. And as of today, very, very special, this October, mid of October, for 2 weeks, the migration starts, raptor migration. And this is one of the best places in Nepal to find and see migrating raptors. They come from the north right through the Kali Gandaki Gorge, between the Annapurna and the Dhaulagiri mountains. Something like 15 to 30 species of raptors have been recorded migrating, and from 15,000 to 55,000 raptors have been recorded within 3 weeks or so. And in one time, they recorded up to 40,000 steppe eagles migrating south. So from this point, as we watch, we can see the raptors in very close vicinities. So actually, this is not a very high altitude, like a sort of passage migrating bird. This is a white-rumped vulture, but they circle around. But they migrate within Nepal, partial migrant. So I'm just trying to show you how close they come to you, and they just come down like the steppe eagles, raptors, like we even have golden eagles coming down. We had accipiters coming down. We had harriers in this area coming down. And this white-rump vulture, as you know, these were on a decline quite rapidly, 97% because of diclofenac. These are found from 75 meters above sea level to 3,000 meters in elevation. And as we watch the raptors, I was telling you, the steppe eagles flying beneath you, this spectacular sight. So they not only give you the lower dorsal view, they also give you a very nice view of the upper wings. So this is a place, if you are here anytime in Nepal during October, to go and sit there in this area. People from different parts of Southeast Asia come here, especially we have the Raptor Watch Society from Malaysia that comes here, spends about 10 to 15 days sitting down in that open area all the time and watching the raptors come from the north. So with this, I've come to the end of my slideshow presentation, leaving you with the evening sunset of the Annapurna South and Hunchuli. Uh, I hope you enjoyed the slides, and if there's any questions, Sarala, I give it back to you.
Thank you, Suchit, for that very, very interesting presentation. So I don't see too many questions, but if people who are listening to the talk have questions, then could you please type them in the chat box? There is one question from Mr. Abhijit Das, and he asks, is there any record of the white-browed tit?
White-browed tit.
Yes, that's what is written. Any record of white-browed tit?
Any record of white-browed tit in Rara or in Nepal?
Probably Rara, or I don't know.
No, I, I don't think there is a record, but still I'm not 100%. I have to check. I could get back to you.
Mr. Karan Shah from Nepal asks, excellent presentation, Suchit. My question is, what was the reason of not spotting aquatic birds except a gull in Rara Lake?
I think Karan sir, namaste. I think the thing is like at that time they had already left. They've already left to go to the higher breeding places because most of the waders come to Rara Lake just for wintering. They also come down to Koshi and Chitwan for wintering. So we were actually too late. So they had already left to their breeding places. That's what I think. So at the gull, we saw a few gulls there. They were possibly in passage.
Okay. I would just want to ask, Suchit, you've been going to both these areas since a very, very long time, no? I've been birding.
Sarala, just to interrupt you, actually, Rara was my first time. So, in fact, it is not easy to get to Rara so easily. But I've been to Annapurna many times. Annapurna, Everest, and all these
Yes.
places.
So whatever Annapurna, or I mean, you've heard of it also since the time that it was pristine, and I know that it was a very, very difficult area to go to, Rara, till recently.
Yes.
But you've seen a lot of changes in these areas, no? How different development or different, tourism, whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever be the aspiration, there's been a lot of changes in these landscapes.
Exactly.
So I would just want you to talk about that also, because they were really these pristine wilderness, which is not the definition now. So,
Yeah. Fortunately, there are a lot of very strong rules in Nepalese national parks and protected areas, and the army is directly involved in the protection. So the bulk of the areas are still well protected, but usually the parts which have degraded is the areas where it's close to the trails. Yeah, so there the lodges are there. There are some villages, and the villages go out to collect the bamboos, which they use for many, building many things like baskets and even their house and things. uh, so destruction of habitat due to the local people is actually the big thing that I see when I'm traveling. But actually, if you go to the core areas, they're still quite pristine. Okay, so when I was going to Annapurna, something like 25 years ago, even along the trails, even though the porters used to cook on wood and all that, you see, the destruction of the wood was not that great. So then the lodges start growing. So they want the visitors to have warmth. So they go and cut the rhododendrons. So that has impacted a lot on the habitats around the lodges and trails. So in fact, that is the big thing that I see from my eyes, that should be stopped. And fortunately, the government has made a rule in national parks where now they are not allowed to cook in wood. Even the porters, they have to carry kerosene along with them. Lodges have to use LPG gas, very strict. But still, you go there, you see the locals, the houses have stocks of wood piled up there, you see. So if that is minimized, I think it would be much, much helpful for the environment. So slowly, there is degradation of habitat, loss of habitat, slowly happening. But because of protection, it is not happening in a big scale, fortunately, Sarala.
so the other thing I also wanted to ask is that, places like Annapurna, or for that matter in the East, Singalila,
Mm-hmm.
you have a lot of people coming in, and a lot of livelihoods are also dependent on the tourists. But we see that most of the time, the main thing nowadays discussed is about this garbage
Mm-hmm.
and waste disposal. So, what is this? Is there any such challenges both in Rara and Annapurna? Because Annapurna, I think you can. I mean, I don't think there's any other high altitude protected area that is so much visited like Annapurna, at least in this part of the world.
At Rara, Sarala, we did not meet many visitors, and Rara National Park is still pristine. Yeah, till the time I was there around 2018, 17, sorry, was the trip that I went with Tim and Carol. It looked very clean, pristine. The locals were throwing a little bit of, like biscuit things and all that, but we were cleaning it. But it was not. It did not have the pressure. It does not have the pressure like that of Annapurna, to be sure. Annapurna has a lot of pressure from normal tourists. Uh, Thousands of tourists go there every year. So, fortunately, Rara is still pristine. There's plans now. The airport is there. They have plans to join that with a road. They're planning to have a luxury hotel near Rara. So if that goes on, that Rara can also uh, be in a threat in that point of view. But till now, Rara is still safe. Yeah, we hope. Annapurna is still bad, and the locals are really fighting. The ACAP is really fighting with the garbage. So every year, tons and tons of garbage gets transported down from these areas. So that is very sad. It's also very sad, even as you know, there's also a lot of garbage in Everest, near the top of Everest.
Yes.
And it's taking a lot of manpower still to get to take them down. And they're doing that in huge numbers every year. Tons and tons of garbage gets cleaned up, but still there's lots to do. There's lots to do.
Despite the garbage, I think the birds are still there, and I hope they still remain there. So
Yeah.
Aditya Pradhan actually asks, it is surprising to see that the white-crested laughing thrush is found at such high altitudes. Do you have a comment on that?
Well, these are just that is just a record. Actually, they stay between sort of 18, 2000. That is the area. But I said that they go up to about 3000. No, I think it has been recorded since then. Your Carol and Tim, when they put the records, so the highest recorded area. So the normal distribution is sort of 18, 2200. That is their altitude. Sort of white crested laughing thrush.
Mm. And there
So
are
they are
people.
not very high altitude birds, as to say.
Okay. So there are people who are also very appreciative of your talk, and they've said that they love it. And actually, Amitav Datta, he writes, hope someday we can make it to Nepal to
Oh,
watch these beauties.
oh, you're
Yeah.
always welcome, everybody. When all these things come back to so-called normal, yeah, you're always welcome to come to Koshi. Actually, very, very, and I invite you also, Sarala, to Koshi, and also to everybody. It's very close to from Kakrabita. Just from Siliguri, I think it's just about how many 1 hour
Right.
there, about 3 hours drive to
Yes.
Koshi.
Yes, it's not very far, and that's the only place in Nepal I ever visited actually. In my yes.
Have you been to our camp, Susan?
No, that's the only location. I think that was at least 15, 18 years back. It was a Kosi
That means
camp,
only their camp was there. So
only Kosi
that
camp.
was
I
their.
think.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, Koshi camp was the only camp before we had Mr. Bharat's
Yes, yes.
camp, that is
Yeah, that was
Koshi
the
Bird
one.
Watching
Yeah.
Wildlife Camp. Then our camp came.
So there's another question from Jigme Dorji. I don't know if Jigme is from Bhutan, but he asks, interesting presentation, thank you. And any high altitude, please talk about some high altitude pheasants in Rara and Annapurna.
Well, actually, in Rara, we actually did not go very high because Tim had a problem with his legs, so we actually could not go very high. But the specialities, Rara pheasants are the cheer pheasant, Cochlus. These are the western species. Uh, then it's actually the pheasant life in the western part of Nepal is pretty similar to Nainital area, the cheer and Cochlus, and then you get uh, Kalish pheasant or with a white crest, the western Himalayan subspecies. So similar like that. Well, in the Annapurna, we get actually Annapurna is quite renowned. We get all the species of pheasants found in Nepal there, including the Satai, Tragopan, the Himalayan Monal or Dafe as we call it. Yeah, so for the blood pheasant and all this sort of things. So really, and then we have the snow cocks, which are actually quite higher up. Podridges also pretty high up. You see, for that we have to go to quite subalpine habitat, or even higher than that, above subalpine habitat. So it becomes quite difficult to get to these areas. So in fact, I wish that I could really, when you said the high altitude birds of Nepal, I was also thinking of very high altitude birds, like going to Gosai Kunda, above Gosai Kunda, Everest region, where you see the
Hmm.
Tibetan snowcocks, yeah, yeah, Tibetan podridges, snow podridges, the chukar and all this sort of thing. Those are really high altitude birds. So with this, my presentation, I could only take you to a bit of Rara and some high altitude birds only. So maybe next time we can talk more about just high altitude birds.
So Saraswati Thapa also asks, is there a possibility to share the list of birds that you have shared today?
Oh, sure, sure. That's not a
What
problem.
is
I'll
this?
send it to you, Sarala. Actually, they are quite, they're not much, but only the birds of the presentation or for Rara? Because for Rara, then
Yes.
I'll have to check my list.
Yes. Okay, and Maitri Das actually, and there are other people who are again saying a very interesting presentation. I think you've kind of created an interest in many people. So some people are saying
Yes.
someday to Annapurna and someday to, Rara. Uh, it's a wonderful presentation. And then she asks, what are the other kinds of Shmita babblers that you can find there? Can one find white-throated dipper? I think, okay.
White-throated dipper in high altitude, in the upper, in the Kali Gandaki, the upper Kali Gandaki, I've seen white-throated, but they're not very common. The common one is the brown dippers, which doesn't go very high altitude, but white-throated dippers are quite specialized for high altitude. Okay.
So what are the other kinds of Shmita babblers?
Scimitar babblers, high altitude streak presses scimitar babblers. The rusty cheeked is actually lower species. So these are sort of mid-hill sort of things. Then we have a few white-browed in the lowlands of Nepal, and the slender bill is very unique. Slender bill is so. Apart from that, there are quite a few babblers that you can see on the high altitudes. So there are about 10 species that we find in this elevation.
Is there any, again, Jigme asks, are there any cultural significance to this Rara Lake?
Well, not that I know of. There are, well, all the lakes in Nepal are holy, both for Hindus as well as Buddhists. There is a Rara Lake Mai. There's a small temple. I don't know when they have a little festival there, but there is not as renowned as the one in Gosaikunda. Gosaikunda is quite religiously pilgrim place. So Rara is not that sacred or in that point of view.
Pradipan Rai actually asks, can you please suggest any good pictorial book on checklist of avian species with Nepali common names?
We have actually a bird of Nepal written in Nepali, if you can get hold of that. But you can also try and go to the website Bird Conservation Nepal, and if they see if they have the Nepalese bird been put over there. I've not checked yet, but they should have that in the website, the birds of Nepal in Nepali. And actually, Dr. Hem Baral is working on another birds of Nepal. So they are trying to update it. So I don't know if it's going to come to the market because most of these local language books are only funded by certain organization to bring awareness. So I don't know if you can really find them in the market. But if you're really interested, you can write to Bird Conservation Nepal. They could find a way to get that to you.
So also I would like to inform Pradeepan that we have been using the birds of Nepal for the past, I don't know, 5-6 years.
Oh.
So we write to some of our, like this Red Panda Network friends, and they bring us a box of them always to Pashupati where we go and collect it. So there is a way, and it's very useful because we are distributing it to community groups over here, local tourism groups over here, and they love it actually, the Nepali version of the same birds of Nepal.
Actually,
Yeah.
Sarah, Himdai will be the best person to catch. So just write
Yeah,
him.
you get it actually. We buy it from Bird Conservation Nepal and they send it to us.
And now I think Himalayan Nature is also trying to make one. So you can talk it out with Dr. Hem and see how it goes.
So Devashri Mankar asks how to reach Rara from Kathmandu. Now this is your...
First of all, you have to fly from Kathmandu to Nepalganj. And from Nepalganj, you catch a flight to Talcha. Okay, so it's about 20 minutes flight, 15-20 minutes flight to Talcha. And from Talcha, you have to walk about between 2 to 3 hours. Easy, nice walk to reach Rara Lake. Okay. So compared to about a week or so before, this one is much easy now to get to Rara.
Dr. Narendra Pradhan from Nepal again asks, Narendra ji asks, how do you see the possibility of bird tourism in Rara?
Well, bird tourism in Rara would be an excellent idea, provided it's done very ecologically friendly way. As it is, Rara has got a lot of Western specialities, beautiful habitat. Actually, it would be a heaven for bird watchers, my experience. And in my 5 days trip with Tim and Carol, I just didn't want to return back. It was so beautiful. I wanted to go and explore more areas. So birding tourism actually is a very good possibility in Rara, provided we become environmentally cautious. Yeah, and I'm very fearful. Rather than bird watching tourism, if normal tourism goes there, so if you have things like boat rides and people going there to have picnics or weekends and have campfires. That sort of tourism is what I fear. So bird tourism, most of the bird watchers are quite conscious. They love birds. They want to conserve it. They want to protect the habitat. So it's not a bad idea, Dr. Naresh, Dr. Narendra. Yeah.
The other thing I also want to add to that is, but what and catching on that, what is the the um, what is the status of bird tourism anyway in entire like the high altitudes of Nepal? And is it just the foreigners who are coming, or do you also get a lot of
No,
South Asians and local tourists also going up there for
no,
birds?
yeah, the bird tourism actually is a niche. It's a very small niche in Nepal. We don't have a lot of even foreigners coming to Nepal. So percentage-wise, is very, very tiny compared to the adventure tourism and other cultural tourism in Nepal. Uh, Talking about the locals nowadays compared to when I started birding, some around 31 years back, now we have lots and lots of youngsters who want to go out. They are on their studies. They're keen to know about the birds. They're involved in conservation, and they're taking. They're very. Some of them are very keen photographers. So the demand is on the increase. Okay, even among the locals, even to go to remote areas like Rara, Dol. I meet few youngsters going to these areas, and even remote areas in Nepal. So we still have we youngsters who are interested to go. So the other tourism that I'm involved with the foreigners is actually a niche, very tiny. So although we have quite a few leaders now compared to when I was there, we just had a handful of leaders doing bird watching. Now we have more than that, but still the birding tourism in Nepal is very tiny.
Noel phoning actually, okay, he asks, is there any option to watch your session again? So maybe somehow you can
I hope so, but yes, it's
PDF or something if it's possible to share. I don't know. So
we can talk about that later, Salah, and I'd love to do it again for you guys. And yeah,
he says he missed it, but of course I think Noel there will be a recording. So since this session is recorded, maybe you can watch the session through the talk through the recording. Anirban Bhaduri asks, would it be possible to combine a trek in the Annapurna National Park with a trip to Mushtang along the Kali Gandaki Gorge?
sure, sure.
Is
Yes.
it possible to combine a trek to Annapurna National Park and Mushtang along the Kali Gandaki Gorge?
Yeah.
What time would one be looking at? How
Okay.
many days?
Uh, Now that is a good question. You can now if you start from Muktinath area or let's say Jomsom, you can fly to Jomsom. Okay, so if you start from Jomsom, it might the trip can take you up to about if you're fast enough a week to about 10 days trip to Lomangtang and back. Yeah, so it depends how much time you want to spend. But if it's just, I'd like to give you a trekking time from Jomsom to Lomangtang, which is the highest point, is near the Tibetan border. And if you are Indians, I don't know the rules. It's a restricted area. So if you have a Indian passport, then you may have to get a special permit for Mustang, the Upper Mustang, especially. Okay, especially after this place called Kagbeni. So from Kagbeni. So for foreigners, there's a special permit. You have to pay extra. I think you have to pay about $75 per day to get to that area. but I don't know about Indian nationals. But to get from Kagbeni to Lomangthang takes about 4 days, 4 to 5 days walk. So, and then you can add up rest days, bird watching, and all that. And then all the areas below Jomsom, then it's the lower Mustang and the Annapurna areas. Okay. So it is a huge, Annapurna area is very big. So Mustang also falls, I think it's in the ACAP, Annapurna Conservation Area Project. So as I said, Annapurna Conservation Area project is more than 7,500, 600 square kilometers. So it's a huge area. So there's areas, different areas, depending from a couple of days of hiking to you can do the whole circuit, the Annapurna circuit for about 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Yeah. So you can combine many, you have many possibilities to do treks in the Annapurna area.
Thank you, Suchit. I think with that, since we don't have any questions, I think we will. Sujan, do you have anything to
Oh,
ask?
thank you so much. I mean, this was wonderful talk. This is a complete new area for me, Rara. I've never heard of this place. I know about Annapurna Trek and the base camp, but Rara was completely new. Thank you so much for giving your time, and wonderful to see everyone again.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Thank you so much,
Hopefully, we'll
Suchit.
meet each other
it's
in the
my,
room.
yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much for bringing Rara and Annapurna to us. I think there are lots of people who will be interested, birders from here who will be really interested.
Yeah,
I'll just
Nepal has always been a fantastic. I mean, Nepal used to be the place to go until Arunachal Pradesh, etc., opened up. I mean, everybody went to Nepal to see the birds and the rhinos. Chitwan was the place we heard of. Tiger Tops was our dream destination when we were youngsters.
But
So
I still want to go to Eagle's Nest,
yes, Eagle
visit.
Nest also has. I mean, Eagle Nest has got
And
its
then
own
you
directly.
must, Suchit, go to Arunachal Pradesh for sure. Many,
Yes,
many places.
Yes,
I
Eagle
have
Nest
to.
will be good for him because this will be on the other side of Bhutan. So there are quite a few species which are unique to that region.
Yes,
So
Also the Nishmi Hills.
oh,
will
I
also
love.
be even better.
Oh,
Fishmeal actually is much easier than Eagle Nest because of the logistics.
oh.
So much
Someday I will liaise with
yes,
you and see
someday.
if the time goes all fine and with all the schedules and the situation. So, in fact,
Yes.
it was a great opportunity that you guys gave
Thank you
me
so much.
to give my introduce a little bit of my country and the areas that we are
Yes.
in and show you a little bit of it. So, in the times to come, we'll get together and I'd really say namaste and do visit Nepal someday and. Stay safe and stay happy.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you,
Right.
everyone. And please, if anyone wants to, has been late or wants to again have a look at the presentation, it will be there in the recording at Birdwatchers Society
Yes.
website. So
Yeah.
please do go there, Noel, and watch it. Thank you so much for tuning in, everyone. And do stay safe. And before I close it, I would want to wish everyone a very happy Dashera, Durga Puja, Dasai, and stay safe when you're celebrating your festivals. And we will again come back, and I think this time it's going to be the iconic birds of Bhutan. That will be sometime in November.
Yes. Okay. Thank
Please,
you.
Thank you.
please, please also include me in that.
Yes.
I will definitely. Thank you,